All right, we are back on Morning Line with our guests. We're talking about issues facing the Metro Police Department. More specifically, of course, the idea of an oversight committee. There will be a referendum vote unless something else changes come November. We're with two individuals that are with Community Oversight Now organization, obviously, for the idea. Thank you both for coming on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
If you would, before we get to the phone calls, and we've got some folks that have questions, the numbers on the screen, lay it out again. As I said, yesterday we heard from the FOP president. They're against the idea. From your perspective, you've already said that why you think it's needed. How will it work again? You're asking for $1.5 million, which should cover most everything. And I don't know if it'll change then from year to year. But how will it work? Spell that out for folks in your mind, how it'll work.
Well, it would be an 11-member board that would be appointed by council. There would be 7 where community organizations can recommend, but they still would have to go before council.
Council would approve. Okay.
2 from mayor and 2 from the council.
Okay.
All approved by council, just like commission seats.
Gotcha.
And the way it would work is that they would oversee any complaints that are coming in and be able to look into those. And what we're doing is bringing community representation and accountability to the table, because we don't believe that that's a factor right now with the internal OPA office at MNPD.
Now, when you do that, meaning you get the complaint and you get and investigate it, then one of the concerns from the FOP is, now, does this hurt the due process for the officers? And regardless of what anyone's charged with, they're entitled to due process. How will that balance? Will they still have, when they come, I assume you'd want to question them? Will you be able to get access to question these officers if there are complaints against them?
Well, there's an executive staff that includes everything from a director to language interpreters to researchers. But no, it actually enhances the due process of officers. It gives them another channel for due process, because at this point in time right now, the way MNPD works, according to the officers who we're talking to, is that the complaints get shuffled through OPA, Office of Professional Accountability, in their Internal Affairs Division. In many respects, the OPA has become weaponized to carry out personal grievances against officers, some of whom may not necessarily deserve discipline. So what we're hearing is that some of the officers want the Community Oversight Board because it allows for another channel due process.
I see. So
that the OPA can wait in case the OPA is actually unfair when it comes to exercising disciplinary action and carrying out personal grievances. So we're hearing quite the opposite. We're hearing that some officers want the COB as long as it allows for an enhanced variation of due process that can counter perhaps unfair investigations by OPA.
And what will happen when there are contradictory, determinations? If the Oversight Committee comes with a different opinion than some of these other investigative units, what will happen? Who will have precedence?
Well, that's undetermined right now. At this point in time right now, what the COB would do was the COB would issue a finding.
Okay.
And it could recommend disciplinary action, although it can't necessarily mandate that, because the Metro Charter doesn't mandate that. But it can recommend disciplinary action and refer those cases or refer those actions to the Chief of Police. It can refer those actions to the Mayor's office. It can refer those actions to
grand jury.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you could send your recommendation, as I guess happens now with whatever organization's looking at, to the DA's office. And so, General Funk could look at your recommendation. Your recommendations would be public. Would the public know what you come with, right?
Probably so. Again, there's some gray areas when it comes to COB investigations, for example.
Rules and regulations would still need to be established for the COB once it's...
But I think everyone, including you, I think everyone agrees the more transparency, the better. Now, obviously, when you come with a recommendation, that will put more pressure, depending on what your recommendation is, on the folks who have to make the decisions on whether or not to take action.
Absolutely.
Which is probably part of the reason you think that it's a good idea.
Absolutely.
And you have to remember that probably 90% of the complaints that are against officers, there's a less punitive remedy for those complaints. There could be a restorative justice remedy. There could be a sit down between the person bringing the complaint and the officer who carried out the complaint. There could be an apology. So there's a lot of remedies when it comes to a recommendation for resolving a complaint that are not necessarily punitive.
Okay.
And so this idea of issuing a recommendation to MNPD or the police chief or another authority, those recommendations could be addressed through less punitive outcomes.
Okay, let's take a few phone calls. We'll start off, I think, with Joe. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Nick.
Hi, Joe.
And your guest. just a couple of comments and questions. I think General Funk has already ruled that in the future, any shootings will go directly to the grand jury for them to make a decision on it. And some of the questions I've got is, when these people are put on the board, I think you said they were going to be appointed by the council, how much training will they have in knowing what the Tennessee state law, what the Metro Police Department policy is, and will they have any legal powers other than just a comment of what the way they see it to make a decision on this stuff? And are these people going to be paid? Is this going to be a full-time job, part-time job, or are they going to be this $1.25 million or whatever it's going to cost? Are they going to be paid to be on this board? And will they have any power to, other than making a comment about it, have any power to do anything with it? Thank you.
All right.
So I'm going to answer a couple questions. So first, the police-involved shootings go directly to the TBI. That came from a memorandum of understanding last year, right, after Jacquees Clemens was killed. Secondly, the board itself is not paid. The staff, actually, who are legal consultants, the executive directors, the language interpreters, they're actually the ones that are paid. And as far as the other questions, I'll let Sekou answer those as far as like what it will actually do and can do.
Well, in the actual charter, there's mandated training. The training may be from a Citizens Police Academy or the equivalent in police procedures, and that's training that the board and the staff must undergo. And in addition to that, also civil rights training, gender equity training, those kinds of things. The COB board and executive staff don't just have powers when it comes to investigating police complaints. The second part of it is policy review. And so that could be issues such as, are there language interpreters when it comes to police community interactions with police and undocumented residents? What does it look like for school resource officers who are in Metro schools when it comes to in addressing concerns of our children? What about public safety mechanisms such as paramedics who are arriving on scenes that are somewhat confrontational? So the policy review part is a second component that the COB will have in addition to the investigations. So I want to emphasize to this point that at this point in time right now, the Metro Charter mandates that the police chief and the Civil Service Commission, also protected by the police union, that they're the ones responsible for monitoring robust discipline. In other words, the COB cannot issue a finding that says John Doe officer should be fired. What the COB can do is issue a recommendation that goes beyond a comment. That recommendation could be sent to the police chief, it could be sent to the mayor, it could be sent to the Civil Service Commission, it could be sent to the benefits board. So there are ways in which the COB can affect the effect, that is the ecosystem of policing and police oversight as a way to essentially make police officers more responsible to police community relations. In relationship, in answer to the grand jury, the grand jury's end of term report found out that regardless of what the DA says, and regardless of what the DA has done, there is an institutional problem. That is that when it comes to disputes over police community relations, what the grand jury report did in 2017 was to say that there's no civilian input. That is evidence is being presented to the DA, to the grand jury, that's one-sided. That's either from the DA or from the MNPD attorneys, basically they're from government officials. So
most grand jury hearings, are one-sided. The DA has incredible power.
But we have for the first time, and this was not a flag-waving liberal. This was basically a moderate or conservative grand jury. That's for the first time in maybe in Metro history that said that the grand jury says that the problem with police community interactions when it comes to disputes being brought before the grand jury is we don't know the civilian side of it. We don't know it. So we think that the COB offers another channel of due process, another channel of accountability, and another channel of public safety that would be better. That's going to make Nashville better in the long run and safer, and also better for democracy.
I'm wondering, will the COB have access to some of the investigative materials? They won't. I mean, you won't be able to get hold of the video ahead of time or anything like that.
The COB, the district, the state attorney weighed in on this. This Community Oversight Board, based upon law, cannot access evidence in quote-unquote, I'm going to use this word, pending criminal investigations.
Yeah, most
pending criminal investigations.
Pending. You could go. So,
yes,
so what will you be able to base your decision-making process on? I guess what is released and made public, and a lot of times law enforcement, as we've seen recently, releases video pretty early. What about interviews, things like that? What else will you do to base it?
Typically, if there's a pending criminal investigation, the Community Oversight Board will have limited access to all available evidence.
Oh, okay.
But once an investigation is closed, then the COB can jumpstart its own investigation with witnesses, with subpoena power, what we call compulsory power.
I was going to say, so you'll have compulsory power.
Yes, based upon Metro Charter rules and the state attorney's opinion.
And how is that different than subpoena? Compulsory, can someone still say no? Or could they be held accountable if they don't show?
Compulsory is basically the same thing as subpoena powers, but the Metro Charter uses the term compulsory.
Huh.
It's just kind of a semantics issue.
Okay.
But it's basically the same thing.
All right. Okay, let's take a call from Ann on 2. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning. I have 2 questions. My first one is, the mayor seems to be playing with his words on his standing. So is he open with communication with the Community Oversight Now committee? And my second is, education is key in this before November 1st. What is the Community Oversight doing now? What is the event that is taking place tonight? And what events do you have coming up in the future that people in the community can get involved to get educated before November 1st so that we can get this message out, so that we can get this passed, because it's so desperately needed in this city?
I'll answer the second question.
Thanks,
I'll let you handle the first one about the mayor. But tonight there is actually a town hall about the Community Oversight Board that is in partnership with Representative Brenda Gilmore, Equity Alliance, and a few other community organizations that are in support of Amendment 1, the Community Oversight Board.
Where will that be?
That will be at Mount Zion on Jefferson Street.
Okay.
And so we have a new website, oversightfornashville.com, where folks can go. All of our events are listed. If there's an event request and people want us to come out to their neighborhood association meeting or anything like that, they can also make a request there. Tomorrow night we'll actually be at Fisk as well. We have a data scientist that's coming in town who works on this nationally, who is very much in support of what we're doing with community oversight in Nashville, where folks can get educated as well.
All right. And as far as, is the mayor interaction been okay?
No, the mayor has backed away from the Community Oversight Board, but I do want to say that the mayor, it's so ironic because the mayor is as vice mayor, is one of the first people that the Oversight Now met with, and through various conversations.
Things have changed since then.
Things have changed since then.
Okay.
Yes, the mayor has flip-flopped, he gave the impression that he was sympathetic to the Oversight Now when he was vice mayor, and he has since seems to have changed directions for reasons why I think many of us in Nashville have no idea about. I think he supports Oversight Now. Frankly, I think he's afraid to take a strong or robust position around the Community Oversight Now, and that may be because of maybe he doesn't want to confront the police chief, maybe because he doesn't want to confront the Fraternal Order of Police, but speaking honestly, it's quite disturbing that he has since shifted his position around the Oversight Now. But, you know, at the same time, our position is that, you know, in 1960, 1955, no urban mayor in the South supported eliminating de jure racial segregation, from Florida to Virginia to Texas. But the civil rights activists like John Lewis, Diane Nash, Martin Luther King Jr., Ella Baker decided to move forward anyway. Because from their standpoint and from our standpoint today, we are trying to bring accountability to Nashville and trying to have a different understanding, a different conversation about democracy, and we're trying to keep our communities safe And so we think that there's a higher purpose. So that's why we move forward, despite the fact that Mayor Briley seems to have shifted his positions on oversight.
All right, well, we may touch bases with him on that and see what else he thinks if he has a different take. We'll take a break. When we come back, more phone calls, more of our conversation with our guests. What do you think? Are you in favor of the Oversight Committee? If you have questions about it, these two right now, big supporters, Community Oversight Now. We'll be back with more right after this.